So what is it like being sponsor facing? I'm sure you guys had a lot of questions about this. So what is it like being sponsor facing? Coming up next. Hey guys, ECRG here. Today we're going to be talking about what is it like being sponsor or client facing. And of course this channel's through the lens of clinical research. So we're going to be talking about it in that lens. But obviously some of the stuff I might be saying can be applicable to your specific field. So what is it like being sponsor or client facing? Well, obviously they're the sponsor. They're paying for everything. They're paying you to do the work. So they control everything. So that obviously has an effect. Whoever is paying for it gets to say what's going on and what's going down. So if they want to change something, it gets changed, no questions asked. And that's that. That's pretty much the end of it. So the reason why I'm doing this video is because a lot of you guys asked the difference between, what's it like being on the project management side of things versus what is it like being on the more clinical operations side of things. And you've got on the clinical operations side, you've got roles like clinical trial assistant. Sometimes they even call it clinical research assistant. You've got roles like CRA. You've got roles like in-house CRA. And all the way on up, lead CRA, clinical trial manager, et cetera, all the way on up. On the project management side of things, you've got roles like project coordinator, project specialist, project management assistant, maybe even project management associate, project manager, project director, senior project director, executive director, all the way on up the chain. So, the roles are going to be different. Your responsibilities are going to be different. And the type of mindset you have to have on each side of things is going to be different. Because on the clinical side of things, you're not working with the sponsor as much. You're more so working with the sites. And that's a completely different relationship than it is working with the sponsor. And it takes two different mindsets to really have a good grasp of what's going on. On the clinical operations side of things, you're more telling the sites what to do. You're keeping them in line. You're making sure they're doing the right things. Kind of what you say goes. But on the sponsor client side, it's the other way around. They're telling you what to do because they're paying for it. And they're obviously the top dog on the food chain. They can tell the sites what to do too. But typically you're more of the liaison between the sites and the sponsor. The CRO is, that is. So, working on the sponsor side can be interesting. Obviously, all the communication with the sponsor has to be, double checked carefully. You don't want to send them wrong information. It's like working for your boss or doing something for someone really high up in the company. You want to make sure everything is perfect. You dot your I's and cross your T's. You don't want to make silly errors or stupid mistakes because they're the people paying for it. You don't want them to think negatively of you. Not to saying on the other side of things, on the clinical operations side, that you're not going to do that. But there's a little bit more stress involved dealing with the sponsor, dealing with the client, because you don't want them to pull their business and go elsewhere, which happens quite a bit. And it's very interesting reasons why that might happen. It could happen just because the project manager for the CRO and the client don't get along very well. They could be doing a good job of it, but if they don't get along, the sponsor might pull their business. And they might not just pull that one study, they might pull that whole portfolio just because of a project manager or something like that. Or if one of the studies doesn't go well, they might pull their whole portfolio over to somebody else. So you've got to keep in mind, things can be a little bit more stressful on the sponsor side because of that, because you might be under such close scrutiny. If you're missing your timelines all the time, you're going to be under close scrutiny and there's going to be some consequences for that. So those are just some things to keep in mind for what it's like being on the sponsor side versus the client side. The sponsor and client side versus the site side. And, it just takes a different type of person to do that. You can learn these skills, different skill set you've got to learn, and it comes through experience. But, you can do both. People do both. People start out on the project management side of things and then ultimately go over to the more clinical operations side of things. So it is possible to make that switch, that transition over, but it's a different mindset. It's a different, relationship you're building with people. And, it's just different. Not necessarily saying one is better than the other, but it's just different. So that's pretty much the experience I've had with the sponsor, just to keep it light and fresh there. You guys comment down below. What is your experience working with the sponsor? Do you guys like working with the sponsor or the client? Do you like being that type of on that type of page, or do you like being on a different side of page where you're telling somebody else what to do and really checking on them? So comment that down below. As always, email us at eliteclinicalgroup@gmail.com. Like, share, subscribe, and that's it for today, guys. Take care.